Hello, hello. How we doing? Good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening, whatever time it is for my listeners. Appreciate you guys so much. I do make music on this channel as well, but as you can tell, I also get up into the Bible, which is what I am going to do right now. The order of operations, that's a mathematical term, and I am not very good at math. So that's the only time you're going to hear me use the order of operations and you know put it to my life. Basically the order of operations was music, because music can probably go, it can go in your mind unconsciously. So I'm sure music came to me first when I was either in my mother's womb or the baby. Then of course there was the Bible that came later, and then video games after that. And so I like a little bit of all those things, and I guess music is what I love. I love music, man. So if I'm playing a video game with good music, I'll do a cover of it, or sing with it, or harmonize with it, or do an acapella version of it toward the end, and or I'll just remake it from scratch using my keyboard. I haven't been using my keyboard a lot lately because I am missing some notes on the keyboard. There are some notes that no longer work. I've had this keyboard since 2008. Back when I was in active duty military, I could afford all those wonderful cool things like that. And it served its purpose well. But there's some notes missing, so I have to be mindful of that when I do my covers. And I just hate the fact that there's of all the 74 or 76 keys that this keyboard has, there's like 3 or 4 of them in the middle C area that don't freaking work. And it really, really grinds my gears. And I just don't want to make any music with those incomplete notes not being present. You know what I'm saying? Because those are the main notes that I use. It's right in the middle C section. And of course they would go out and not work anymore because I probably tapped those particular notes around that middle C area more the times than the high C's or the low C's or anything like that, right? So that's how come you don't really see me doing a lot of musical things using my keyboard and piano and synthesizer and stuff like I used to years ago on here. But I want to get back into it. But I feel I need a better operating system when it comes to my keyboard. And where I'm at, things get exported over here. I don't have normal access to things. And so it's really hard to get the cool stuff like that. You're either going to pay a fortune and get it right away, or pay the real price and then add, I don't know, a lot of money on there for shipping. So it's I don't know, almost the same darn thing. So I just got to choose what I want to do: pay a lot of money and wait, or pay a fortune up front and get what's only available where I'm at. So that's why I kind of haven't been doing a lot of musical things online like I used to. But this video in particular here is Genesis chapter 8, an analysis. This is why you clicked on it, to hear the Bible, not to hear me ramble on about other things. And we are going to get into it. And as you guys know, if you heard my other videos, there have been many lore, many stories, many forms of entertainment where things have been written and it's enjoyable to us and we may like it and it's awesome. But the truth of the matter is those things are fiction and they won't even make us any money anyways. But we like to do it because it brings us a pleasure of some sort of things. We liked it. Whether it be a show, anime, video game, lore of a video game, lore of a particular franchise of entertainment or something like that. We like those things and we watch it and that's all said and good. But the Bible is something more. It's not just lore of a fictional universe or fictional characters that don't really exist. It is actually real. And the principles that the Lord crafted this world on still exist today, and they still keep everything how everything needs to be. And the Lord has got his godly delegated authority in the earth. The Lord was the creator of governments. He speaks to Moses on how government should be, and when they get started, when they get away from Egypt, and Moses brings them out of Egypt in Leviticus and Numbers, talks about all those things. And we'll get into that later. But right now we're in Genesis chapter 8. The flood recedes. I'm using the New Living Translation, okay? And so we're going to get right into it. And how it goes is I read it from top to bottom, I finish. And then after that, I'm going to read it and read between the lines and connect the dots with the information that the Holy Spirit was faithful to leave us in the Word of God. Are you guys ready? I'm ready to read it. Let's go ahead and get on into it. Jon-Mark W. hitting you with the Word again. Let's do it. The flood recedes. This is Genesis chapter 8, the New Living Translation. Verse 1. And we're going to read more after that. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the flood waters began to recede. The underground waters stopped flowing, and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. So the flood waters gradually receded from the earth. After 150 days, exactly 5 months from the time. Oh, so that's how long 150 days is. Okay, at least now we know. Exactly 5 months from the time the flood began, the boat came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. 2.5 months later, as the waters continued to go down, other mountain peaks became visible. After another 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the boat and released a raven. The bird flew back and forth until the floodwaters on the earth had dried up. He also released a dove to see if the water had receded and it could find dry ground. But the dove could find no place to land because the water still covered the ground. So it returned to the boat, and Noah held out his hand and drew the dove back inside. After waiting another 7 days, Noah released the dove again. This time the dove returned to him in the evening with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. Then Noah knew that the floodwaters were almost gone. He waited another 7 days and then released the dove again. This time it did not come back. Noah was now 601 years old. On the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began, the floodwaters had almost dried up from the earth. Noah lifted back the covering of the boat and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. 2 more months went by, and at last the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, "Leave the boat, all of you, you and your wife and your sons and all their wives. Release all the animals, the birds, the livestock, and the small animals that scurry along the ground, so they can be fruitful and multiply throughout the earth." So Noah, his wife, and his sons and their wives left the boat, and all of the large animals and birds came out of the boat pair by pair. Then Noah built an altar of the Lord, and there he sacrificed as burnt offerings the animals and birds that had been approved for that purpose. And the Lord was pleased with the aroma of the sacrifice and said to himself, "I will never again curse the ground because of the human race, even though everything they think or imagine is bent toward evil from childhood. I will never again destroy all living things. As long as the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest, cold, heat, summer, winter, day and night." All right, so that was Genesis number 8. Now we are going to break it down. And I'm going to be honest, quite honestly, everything is so self-explanatory in this one. This one may not be a long video, ladies and gentlemen. This actually might be one of my shortest ones because there's really not too much to explain here. I mean, yeah. And I knew there were going to be some chapters like this, and that's freaking awesome. That is wonderful. Thank you, Lord, for that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into it, all right? But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the flood waters began to recede. Okay, so we can see here that God sent a wind, and this ain't just any wind. This is wind that's basically pushing the waters where they need to go, and God is just, using everything that is inside the earthly realm to handle itself. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have a big old angel come out, and he didn't do anything flashy. You know what I'm saying? He just got it done like that. Not a problem. Carefully and in a decent manner that it wouldn't destroy the earth. That's why the thing took long. It's not that God is slow in drying the earth. It's just that, according to the laws of the earth and those principles that God created, this is how long it's going to take to dry, and this is how long it's going to take to move this massive amount of water covering the whole world without destroying the earth. I mean, God could have moved it faster, but, what's gonna happen? He could have moved the water so fast it would have flown out of Earth's atmosphere and then would have splashed over in Mercury, which would have caused, I don't know, some terrible thing to happen. Who knows? Some catastrophic thing to happen. So God knows exactly what he's doing. He knows how soft, how strong he needs to be, how delicate and intense he needs to be. I mean, beyond what we could even imagine. That is the cool part to this. Okay. So the floodwaters began to recede. The underground water stopped flowing. So that would be like the springs and stuff like that. And the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. So the floodwaters gradually receded from the earth. After 150 days, exactly 5 months from the time the flood began, the boat came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Okay, so I was hearing, and I looked up the information in the past. You think I would have done it recently for this video, but I was hearing that Mount Ararat was near where Turkey is, and they said over near Turkey that's where they found the ark, and there was video of it, or photographs of it, the imprints of it in the ground, which is what I show in my videos concerning the ark and stuff like that. And it was, images that have been taken a picture that's, a big, huge boat, like on the ground near Mount Ararat. I mean, the Bible is very clear on what it says, right? And they were saying that was near Turkey, and so when they did have the means of moving it, of course, they obviously moved it somewhere. Now, what you also see in my videos, and I need to explain this before some people think, oh, see, it's fake. Look, and you shouldn't, because I have a picture right before I show those other art pictures of them recreating it for the Creation Museum. The Creation Museum is in the United States. I forget what state it is. I was looking at the picture, and they say it in the picture. They say it when I was gathering up the photographs from the internet. I don't know if it was in Missouri or if it was in Texas. I'm not even sure, but it says it. It says it, and yeah, it says where it is. I can't recall where it is. I have not been to it. I would love to go to it. Where I'm at right now, I am very, very, very far away from that place. But if I could go to it, I definitely would. That would actually be a real cool thing to me. One of the places I'd like to travel to that I have not been yet is the Creation Museum in the United States, and then also Israel. There are things in Israel I want to see with my own eyes, and I just want to look at. And anybody who's skeptical of the Bible or loves the Bible, either or, I recommend you go to Israel. Okay? You actually visit that place and see stuff for yourself, which will give you a better understanding of the Bible. There are battlefields that were there where the Israelites fought certain folks to get their land that God promised them. There are battlefields there where King David and his men fought, where Saul fought, King Saul. There's battlefields where, so many of the historical Old Testament battles happened, and it's just so cool. It is just so cool. You know what I mean? To know that these areas are still there. They are real areas. So anybody tells you that the Bible isn't real, yeah, you need to take a trip to Israel. I don't even need to go to Israel to see that the stuff is real, but I want to, because it's just going to enhance and strengthen the faith even more. As the older I get, the more sure I am of the Bible and its contents. I am not doubting this word. I understand some people can, misread this word, and there is human error that can step in. But hey, when you got the Holy Spirit and you know what you know, and you're under Holy Ghost filled preaching, and somebody is preaching it to you like God told them to preach it to you, the truth will not be covered or masked. It is there, it is real, and the Word of God declares that truth, and the proof of it is all around the world, which is why you should travel to many different places. But for me, I'm not a big traveler. I like my house. I like the great indoors, especially since it's COVID-19 time. I love being indoors. I'd rather be indoors. The only time I ever go out is if I need to do any business at my credit union or the bank, or go food shopping or gas the vehicle up. I don't really leave unless I have to do something of those natures, because, do my duty weekends for the Navy Reserve, which I thankful to the Lord that I can do that. But unless it's business that I need to really do, I'll go out and do it. But if I'm not going to be doing it, then it's like, hey, I'm chilling in the house, great indoors. But when we can travel again, yeah, Israel, the Creation Museum is really going to be where I want to focus on going and seeing that huge, exact replica of how big the ark was. It's amazing. People can walk in it, how huge it is. And you'd have to think it would need to be very, very huge to hold every animal in the whole entire world that God made 2 by 2. Plus, he had to have room for more animals to eat and to sacrifice to the Lord. And then you had to have room for the family members to be in too. And then, of course, that place had to be, you needed a nice little ventilation system in it. I mean, the ark wasn't made by some stupid person. I mean, Noah knew what he was doing. That was well ventilated. You know what I'm saying? And he followed the instructions of the Lord for one thing. You know what I mean? So anyway, so those are the pictures you're going to see as I post on here. And that's what it is. They're basically recreating it for the Creation Museum. And that's what the main thing that I wanted to say and pass from that. Okay? So 2.5 months later, the waters continued to go down. Other mountain peaks became visible. Another 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the boat and released a raven. The bird flew back and forth until the flood waters on the earth had dried up. Now you see the raven, he just doing what God, created him to do, but the raven just flies and he minds his own business and he never comes back. You know what I'm saying? He kind of just flies and flies and flies and say, oh, there's land. Okay, I want that land the first time it comes, and I'm trying to give me some food, and I'm trying to, so the raven is kind of a little bit self-centered in his ways, but it's a raven. You can't fault him for that. He's just doing what he was created to do, right? He also released a dove to see if the water had receded and if it could find dry ground. But the dove couldn't find no place to land because the water still covered the ground. So it returned to the boat, and Noah held out his hand and drew the dove back inside. So as we see, the dove has different characteristics. The dove is, kind of faithful in a way, is that he'll go out and instead of just flying around until there's something dry, the dove will actually come back and he'll be like, no, there's nothing yet, so I'm just going to come back to HQ, come back to headquarters, report in, so the dove is very, very faithful in doing that. There's even a study on doves that they keep their mate. They keep the same mate that they have all their lifespan. I think the only way they'll get another mate is if their original mate dies. But even if their original mate dies, I don't even think they'll get another mate, if I'm correct. I need to look these things up. But I know dove is one of those faithful animals to its mate. I mean, they don't just go, there's just awesome characteristics and traits about lambs, about doves, and about lions that the Lord uses when he's talking about his people or heavenly things. And it's really, really awesome. Because these animals, voodoo priests were known for mind controlling and using animals. The main type of animals that they would use are goats or wolves or some birds or some type of other things. But animals that they just cannot use are lambs, doves, and of course a lion. I mean, to mind control a lion, you'd have to freak. I don't know what you'd have to freaking do to do that, but that's just some crazy stuff. To be able to mind control a lion. Of course, they made fictional movies about it. If I remember correctly, it was this one movie called The Brotherhood of the Wolf, and basically what it was is it was a lion taken from Africa, and they put thorns in it or something harmful in it to make it more to make it attack or something like that, to make it be more aggressive and just kill people, and they could control it to where it could kill whatever it wants. But normally, no matter what type of incantations or whatever you're trying to use, these animals cannot be controlled, and that's the reason for that. God picked them for a reason. Number one, even if a lamb could be controlled, why would you want to do it? It's a harmless animal. Number two, the dove, it's just got wonderful characteristics and faithfulness that the Lord has put in. Even eagles. Eagles are very, very, very awesome birds too. I remember we were doing a Bible study about how the eagle is, and about how the eagle and the vulture. They're birds, but two different mindsets on what they eat, how they raise their young, and all that stuff. And then, of course, there is the lion, which, if you're trying to control that thing and you fail, you're going to be his dinner. You know what I'm saying? Not only that, he's got the women going out there hunting. And, he's just keeping it, holding it down the fort at the Pride Rock, wherever their Pride Rock is, where the lions have their pride and where they assemble and hang out, eat, and lounge, and, And so the lions really, really, really got a way of even showing respect to one another. My wife was telling me one time, she went to the zoo. I think this is when she was doing her little travels. She was traveling to Korea, and she went to a zoo out there, and she saw how the lions, the female lions, respond to the male lions. Like something had happened, and the lions were they were having a little dispute with the other lions across the way or some junk like that. One of the ladies had a dispute with one of the other ladies, and then I don't know, one got away a little bit away from his pride, and they were fighting, and the lion came on over, the male lion came on over, and he growled, and it was so loud that it got my wife's attention. And the female lion just, kind of bowed to him and just went on about her freaking business and got the freak out of there, Shoot. It reminds me on the Castlevania anime when this one character was trying to go to Dracula and complain to him about not having enough, blood to suck from the human race or something like that. And Dracula was just like, you know what? You need to get the freak out of here, you little insignificant vampire. Always talking, always trying to show something that you are trying to be big and bad when you are nothing. Get out of here before I slit your throat. You know what I'm saying? Like he was seriously trying to show that. Get out of here. Quit wasting my time and energy before I do something I really don't want to do right now to you. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, the lion probably wasn't going to slit the female lion's throat, but he came over there and showed the dominance, and that just kind of quelled the situation, and, it was like that. So anyways, basically these animals are special to the Lord, and, any incantation, any voodoo priest, if they tried to control them, they couldn't. And so... this was coming from a friend who got saved, and he was saved from a family where his uncles were heavily into voodoo priest and magic. So that's why I know this is true. This is coming from somebody whose family members were in the voodoo stuff. He's one of my best friends. He is from Haiti, and that's all I'll say about him. I don't want to mention his name. Don't want to embarrass anybody. But yeah, these animals cannot be controlled. The lion, the lamb, the dove. There's a reason the Lord, these animals that is representative in the Bible frequent times by the Lord when he's trying to do some things. So yeah. Okay, so the dove came back inside. After waiting another 7 days, Noah released the dove again. This time the dove returned to him in the evening with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. So the raven is gone about his business. He don't even give a crap. The dove came back and said, look what I found. That lets you know there is land, sir. We have land. And he came back with an olive leaf. This is the first indicator of the significance of the olive. If you know, olive oil is very, very significant and used in recipes around the world. Olives, there is an olive press in Israel, and they still make business with olives till this day. They have olive presses where they make all types of olive oil. Extra virgin, you guys know the light olive oil, the thick, heavy olive oil where it's darker, different olive oils. I think there's a super light, right? There's the medium, and then there's the super dark one. I usually cook with the light one if I'm cooking steaks or some type of meat that don't have very much fat on it and need a little cushion when it's cooking so it doesn't burn and stick to the pan. If I'm going to use olive oil, I may use butter depending on what I'm doing. But yeah, olive oil is very important in Israel. That was one of their ways that they made money, and that was one of the things that they traded back in the day before there was currency and money and things like that. And as we can see, the first thing that the dove brings back is the olive branch. So the olive branch, olives, a dove holding olive branches, a dove, these are all symbols, of God, and things like that he will use. That means simply to say peace, goodwill, it's okay, I'm handling it, everything's going to be all right, so that's very important, and to know those significance and things like that. And then Noah knew that the floodwaters were almost gone. He waited another 7 days and then released the dove again. This time it did not come back. So when the dove don't come back, the dove was faithful to come back all those times. But when it finally didn't come back, Noah knew for sure, hey, all right, okay, so, unlike the selfish raven that's just going to go about his business and not give me any feedback, I got to send the dove out. And then the dove actually came back. This is also a type and shadow of Jesus Christ. So you had the first man created. That's like the raven. The first man, Adam, right? The first man, failed. Okay, he was in charge of ruling the planet, watching over it. He basically handed the planet over to the serpent, the devil. That's why the planet got worse. Ground got thorny, crops couldn't grow right. We were banished from the garden and couldn't have our love, our life and health to the full with Jesus Christ in that awesome garden. We couldn't even walk with God daily anymore like we used to. Couldn't go back to the garden. We're banished from the garden. Now we got to make our own way on the outskirts of the garden, which is totally foreign. And it wouldn't have been that way if the planet would have been ours. But now it kind of, Satan got it. It belongs to Satan now. Satan tricked the human race, Adam and Eve at the time, to get the planet. And so now Satan owns the planet. And that's how come things are how they are. It's a post-sin world. Okay? Sin is coming into the world. This is why animals now hunt and kill other animals. They originally were only supposed to eat the plants of the ground. Yes, they were originally, even all these animals that can't eat meat, more than likely were only supposed to eat plants. But once sin came into the world, it changed crap. So now the animals, they kind of want to eat each other now, and so, even though sin came into the equation, it's something how God creation still is able to operate, but they just had to change because sin is there now. So now the animals are not going to be at peace now. They're going to be more fearful and they get territorial. And this is why, you can't just walk into, a lion's territory or a rhinoceros's territory or a moose's territory or a dog's territory, because they're going to be like, what you doing here? I don't know you. This is mine. Get out of here. The first thing they say. And that's the first thing that humans say. When a little baby or a little girl, right, a little boy, it's young and they playing with toys, that's mine, right? You don't got to teach them that. That's natural. Why is that like that? Because that is our fallen human nature. Anyway, the raven represents man, the first man, Adam, who failed. The dove represents the second Adam, which is the one that has not came down yet and died, which is Jesus Christ, which will come later and make a new covenant, the New Testament. That way, the Jews are not the only ones that can have access to God. The Gentiles, meaning everybody who isn't Jewish, all right, people like me and other folks in the world, can have access to God. My dad was an orphan, and he never really knew his family. I do not know my dad's side of the family, so you never know. I could be a Jewish person in disguise. Who knows? Or I have Jewish blood. I really don't know. Wouldn't matter. The Lord loves me the same anyhow. As long as you come to Jesus Christ and accept his blood covering, doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, the Lord's got you. You know what I'm saying? That all men can come to repentance. Everyone has a right to know this. Everyone has a right to know this. This is why I'm sharing it with everyone publicly, open. You're not going to get this stuff in schools. You're not going to get this in college. Yeah, you'll have your philosophy classes in seminary. You'll have those classes, but you're not going to get this particular type of word reading and teaching, like this. And like I said, I cannot take all the credit for this. I attribute this to men who I have been under, good pastors, good leaders, good Bible study leaders, good preachers and pastors and evangelists that have come out and done revivals for us at our church. So this is not all me here. Yes, I read the Bible. I try to read it on a normal basis. Well, especially now, I can read it on an awesome normal basis now and give it to you guys, at the same time. So, this is something that you're not going to hear in schools. Schools skip this class. Nobody in school probably wants to teach this class because they know. See, the world is evil, man. This is what we have to understand. Satan owns a good portion of it. The Lord is allowing him to do this because he rightfully tricked man to freaking get it. Well, not rightfully. He twisted, the stuff around his words to trick man to give it to him. So the Lord's like, okay, man, you got a problem now. So you're going to live with it for a while. You're going to understand what you did. But the devil wants us to forget that he owns it. The devil is happy with us not even knowing that he exists. The devil would like us to think he's a myth. The devil would like to think God is a myth. The devil doesn't care as long as he can get you to not be with God, trust in God's word, and go to God. So anyway, the raven represents Adam. The dove represents a type of Jesus Christ where, the first thing messed up, so God had to send something else, and he got the victory. Well, this dove did its job. The raven failed. Didn't even come back. Not even at all. Not even once. The dove came back twice. And then when the dove didn't come back the third time, on the third day he rose. You see the symbolism there? Oh my goodness. It's just awesome. No one knew everything was I. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So Noah was 601 years old on the first day of the new year, 10 and a half months after the flood began. The flood waters had almost dried up from the earth. Noah lifted back the covering of the boat and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. 2 more months went by, and at last the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, "Leave the boat, all of you, and your wife, and your sons, and their wives. Release all the animals and the birds and the livestock and the small animals that scurry along the ground, so they can be fruitful and multiply throughout the earth." How many know the Lord's message is still the same? The devil is trying to not have us be fruitful and multiply. He wants to say stuff like, oh, it's so expensive to have a baby. He wants to say stuff like, oh, no, you need a brand new house to have a baby first. You can't have a baby in this small house. It's too small. The baby's going to be so cramped. How is this going to work? You can't do that. You can't do that. Get a better house first. The devil wants to say, oh, yeah, the resources of the world are getting low, global warming, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. We have to be selfish and save all these resources for ourselves. We have to go to war for these resources because we're running low. That's not even the case. That's not even the case. If it was that bad, come on, dude, the world would have been destroyed a long time ago. People have been saying this for 20, 30, 40, 50 years now, that the world's resources are on a limited supply. And it's only a matter of time. The sun's going to explode and blow up. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. If it was that serious, you know what I'm saying? God says, be fruitful and multiply. Then he still says, be fruitful and multiply now. He hasn't changed. There is enough resources. The world ain't going nowhere until God says it's going somewhere. And when it does go somewhere, God's going to create a new heaven and a new earth, which is going to be totally different than the other one. No sin in this one. It's going to be even better than the pre-sin, pre-flood era where Adam and Eve was. Even better. Can you imagine that? Because the pre-sin, pre-flood world was the pinnacle so far. It's not going to get any better than that. But it will get better after the Lord gets done with things. That's after he's got to come and, get rid of the freaking evil, get the devil and all those who follow him and his seed, all the people who the devil is their daddy and they do what the devil likes and the devil does. He's got to get them out of here, you know. And the Lord is giving people a chance to repent now, to get right with God now. But this is not always going to happen. You know what I'm saying? So it's very important we get right with God now. And us as Christians, we got a job to do. We got to let folks know. And that is what I'm trying to do through these videos, especially now while I have a lot of time. Like I said, I mentioned on my other video, on my initial video, and maybe even on some of my other ones, I was working. I was working like a dog. I was even working so hard with my college classes and my job and the Navy Reserves that there would be some times where I would only have one meal that day, or I wouldn't even eat. And also, I would be missing church services as well, simply to do all this. But this is what I needed to do to ensure that I had enough money to pay for what I need to pay for and take care of myself. That was the goal, just to get the needs met. I wasn't trying to be a rich baller or shot caller, or, you know, trying to be all that in a bag of chips with peanut butter and jelly with a baseball bat on the side. I wasn't trying to do nothing like that. I was just trying to take care of my business, okay? As a man ought, as a man should, right? But then all of a sudden COVID-19 happened. And now I'm like, okay, the Lord is talking to me. He's letting me know that I need to take care of this business. And his business is his word. You know, my church is still doing the live streams because we cannot meet because of the president's executive order. Also for the governor's executive order of where I'm at. It's like, hey, okay, we're going to follow that. We're going to follow the laws of the land. But we also understand church still needs to go on. Church still has to go on. God's word still needs to be preached. The Great Commission is what Jesus said before he left and went up to heaven. You know, you got to preach this to all the lands and all the creatures of the earth, man. And even me, I was one of those creatures that needed to be preached to. And I was preached to it and forever changed at that moment in time. And ever since then, I was never the same. And I have to share that with folks because, you know, we need to do that. And we got to preach this Bible and talk about this Bible and let people know the full Bible, not just part of it, not just the nice flowery scriptures, but every part of it, the good and the bad. And that it's all a part of this big, awesome tapestry, the big picture that God has allowed us to see through his word. And hey, man, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to continue to do it as long as I have the power to do it. You know what I'm saying? And so let's continue on here. God's message is still the same. Be fruitful and multiply. Despite what the negative news, the bad news that sells really well is telling you, the lies, all right? Despite what they're saying, okay, God's message is still the same. That's a general message for everybody. If you're married, get together, have some babies. You know what I'm saying? And yes, the process is arduous and more expensive and actually quite annoying than it ever has been. But hey, it's part of the process and you got to deal with it. You know what I mean? And so Noah, his wife, and his sons and their wives left the boat, and all the large and small animals and the birds came out of the boat pair by pair. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and there he sacrificed. He sacrificed as burnt offerings. The animals and the birds had been approved for that purpose. And the Lord was pleased with the aroma of the sacrifice and said to himself, I will never again curse the ground because of the human race, even though everything they think or imagine is bent toward evil from childhood. Okay, this is very true. Now, this is where the Bible actually records the first. Oh, no. The first offering to God was from technically that another. Okay, so yeah, Abel offered the first animal offering, and that's why it pleased God. So Noah was probably, he remembered that. He remembered that Abel's offering was pleasing and Cain's wasn't. And we know the whole thing that happened with Cain and his family, right? So Noah was probably trying to harken back to his fathers and say, well, what's pleasing to the Lord? And, well, he followed the Lord's directions. The Lord kind of told him already, have animals ready to sacrifice to me. And he kind of remembered, oh, yeah, shoot, I remember the tales, the stories that was passed down to me. Yeah, these aren't tales, tall tales. These are real things. Stories that was passed down from my fathers about Abel before Cain killed him, he sacrificed animals, and that was good to the Lord. For Adam and Eve came out of the garden. I don't know if Noah knew this or not, or if it was, if that part was passed down, because it's kind of like, Adam probably isn't proud of being banished out of the garden and finding out he was naked. But, yeah, the Lord made them animal skins to cover them, right? So going back to that in Genesis 3 or 4, chapter 3 or 4, where he said he had to, an animal had to die in order for them to get animal skins, So the Lord was trying to show them that you commit sin, there has to be a blood atonement for sin. Sin is something that cannot just be taken lightly. And thank God, God didn't choose human sacrifice like a lot of these, other gods, like, the Aztecs and the Incas and a lot of them. And, a lot of these, warlike, weird tribes, man, they required you to take human sacrifice. And not only that, but add insult to injury, rip the person's heart out and show everybody who was watching around that you actually did it. And a lot of these people were humans. Well, of course, they had to rip their heart out and show it. And this is not something in those tribes, but it's also in some African rituals as well. Probably leading over to the evil. Usually, if it takes human sacrifice, that's not from God. That's not from Jesus Christ. Okay, God's not going to ask you to do a human sacrifice. So if there was any God doing human sacrifices, that's just evil. That's demonically, satanically inspired. That's basically the devil saying, haha, look, God, you asked for animals, but look what I'm going to do. I'm going to require humans. I'm going to raise the bar. But the devil still is like bull crapping compared to God as far as strength and power. He's just stupid, and he makes people who follow him dumb too. They might think they're intelligent. They might think they're smart. That's where the deception comes in. The devil deceived Adam and Eve. If he can deceive Adam and Eve, and he's still deceiving people today. That is the thing. That's what I'm trying to stress here. It's freaking crazy, man. Freaking crazy. Okay? So, God said he will never do this again. Even though all they think is evil. And that can be true today, man. Like I said, there's a lot of forms of various entertainment that don't have good moral of the story. Remember back in the day when people say, the moral of the story is, games actually had moral to a story and there was some type of poetic justice? Well, I don't know. Now it seems like these stories, I don't know. It doesn't make you feel good when you watch them. There's some stories that doesn't make you feel good when you look at them or play them in the video game world. It's just like, what the heck? Like, are they for real here? Like, the stories are flipped on its head. What's good is bad and what's bad is good. And if the devil can do that, he's been doing that from the beginning. He's still doing that today through various forms of media and news outlets and all sorts of things. Okay, so this is something that we have to be aware of, especially during this time of COVID-19, where we are exposed to maybe a lot more internet than we normally are. Okay, there's good things on the internet and there is not so good things on the internet. There's bad and evil things on the internet, and you got to be able to distinguish between them. If you can't, you're going to get swept up in this mixture, in this torrent of madness. And the first mixture in the torrent of madness that the Bible talks about is the Tower of Babel and Babylon and that land. I mean, everything was mixed. It was religious, not in a good sense, religious in a negative sense. And usually if you look at the term religious, because biblical Christianity is not a religion, okay, and it is a way of life and a way that Jesus Christ was teaching to his disciples, you can see that there's a difference between biblical Christianity and religion. And in the New Testament, they get into that. That's why the Pharisees, the religious big dogs of the day, who thought they knew it all, full of pride, and they're just evil as any other person, they just put a religious twist on things, they crucified Jesus and killed him. So we understand that later on we will see that there is a difference between religion and biblical Christianity. True faith and the freaking nonsense that the world plays at, trying to appease the gods, right? those type of religious nonsense, okay, this is the part that the world gets kind of right. This is where the religious nonsense comes from. It all originated from Babylon. And we're going to get into that later when they talk about King Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. I don't know. That could be the next verse. It could be many chapters away from this, but that's later. Anyway, God said he will never destroy living things again. As long as the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest and cold, heat, summer and winter, day and night. The Lord has found his faithful man and his family, and he is saying, I'm glad somebody is still good here. I'm glad somebody is still pleasing and is not doing evil things and killing themselves and hurting themselves and, making genetic mutations and, not all weird and stuff like that, not destroying my creation that I built for them. Noah was the man, and Noah got the job done. That is all of Genesis chapter 8, New Living Translation. Now we're going to move over to the prayer phase. If anybody needs prayer, please pray with me. Repeat after me right now. Just, first of all, let's bow our heads and close our eyes in reverence to God. You might be saying, Jon-Mark, I don't know of all that you talk about. I'm not even sure the validity or the truth of it. But I do know that something is not right inside of me, and I need the Lord God, Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for my sin, to come and take my sins away. He's already died for it. He's already paid the precious blood for it. His precious sinless DNA, he's already shed, so you can get your heart right. Don't let his sacrifice be wasted. Don't be the people that die and go to heaven and they say, oh, I thought this wasn't true. Oh, I didn't know about this. Because by then you cannot ask for forgiveness. You got to ask for it now while you're alive on this side of heaven, okay? The earth. While you're down here with all of us, this is where you got to get right. So you can buy that ticket and so you can get that seat and be with Jesus, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords in glory. And you got to get your sins away so the sins won't take you to a devil's hell. And Jesus made a way for us to be able to do this. And it's basically spelled out in many different forms and fashion all throughout his word. I mean, that's how I see it. I mean, it's just all throughout his word in many different forms and fashion talked about. And so you would say, Jon-Mark, that's me. I want to get my heart right with God. I want to get it right with the Lord. And just repeat after me. Say this. Heavenly Father, I thank you for your word today. And I'm asking that you come inside of my heart, take away all of my sin, make me clean, whole, and pure. And I'll follow you for the rest of my days. I thank you, Jesus Christ, for your sacrifice. It's the only hope that we have from having our sins forgiven and seeing you face to face, not as our judge, but as the risen Lord and Savior of us, our King, our God. In Jesus' powerful name, we pray. Amen. I thank you guys so much for listening. I thank you guys so much as always. Hit me up on my music. Let me know how it sounds, if you like it sounds. And also, thank you so much for listening to my Bible. We're going over the Bible. Next, we'll be in Genesis chapter 9. Okay? It's going to freaking get cool. It looks like, yes, God confirms his covenant. So that's going to be our next one. Thank you so much. May the Lord bless you. Be safe.